Hello everyone, I welcome you all once again to my education channel PRABHAVI Education Hub, and in this video we are going to learn about Nairobi Negotiation and India. So we will see these negotiations which was actually took place held in 2015 in Nairobi city of Kenya. Okay, and we will see it from Indian perspective, and we will also learn major points which are very important from Indian perspective. So this is chapter 16.7. So make sure that you have also watched my previous videos because they are very important, and do subscribe to the channel and do not forget to press the bell icon. So as usual we will learn point wise. So this Nairobi negotiation was 10th ministerial conference in Nairobi, okay, and it is in Kenya. Nairobi is a city of Kenya. Next point, and basically it took place in 2015. It was held in 2015. It has been observed that there was a divergence among the WTO memberships. Okay, so how you have to first of all understand the groups. The country is divided into somehow three categories. First one is developed countries. Those who are actually developed industrially, service wise, everything there of these countries are developed. And second one is developing country. And the example of developed countries are such as European countries. Most of the European countries are developed. USA is an American country, and European countries, then Canada, etc. They are developed countries. Developing one are somehow India. India is a developing country. China is also a developing country, and there are many countries, but we have to understand that India is a developing country. Then the third category comes, and that is the least developed countries, and you can understand who those countries are. So basically they are South American countries. There are very poor countries over there also, and African countries. Most of the African countries are somehow least developed countries, and there are other some scattered countries around the globe, so they are also least developed countries. So overall the membership is further divided into three categories: developed, developing, and least developed. And there is a somehow tug of war going between developed countries, developed versus developing, and LDC countries, least developed countries, also support developing countries in fight with developed ones, and somehow we cannot determine who are the winners, but the developed countries seems to be winning many times. There has been history of World Trade Organization that developed countries have basically mold the provisions according to their will, their benefits. Okay, so this is the situation. First of all you have to understand. So in this negotiation also it was observed that there was a divergence among the WTO membership. What is divergence? When two lines move away from each one. So from here it is, if this is the point of meeting, and one line is moving this side and second one is moving this side, so this is called divergence, and this condition can be called as a convergence because two lines are coming together to meet at some point. And here in the, you can call it here the developed ones, they are moving in the different direction, and developing and LDC are moving in the different direction. So this is divergence, somehow you can understand with this, among the WTO membership. Okay, now for we will also discuss some major points which was basically taken out from the Nairobi negotiation. So first is for reaffirmation of the mandate of Doha round. So this negotiation becomes very important because it somehow emphasized to implement the Doha round reaffirmation. And Doha round reaffirmation was basically Doha round of negotiation took place in 2001, and there was a convergence on the point that few provisions of Uruguay round of negotiation should be implemented. There was implementation issue. You know that in previous video I told you that WTO basically established from this round of negotiation. WTO emerged after Uruguay round of negotiation, but the provisions set for WTO under the Uruguay round of negotiation was not implemented. So that is why Doha round becomes very important, under which there was emphasis and there was a convergence on the issue that those proposed ones will be implemented, but still it was not implemented. That is why Nairobi negotiation again somehow reaffirmation was made that mandate of Doha round should be implemented. Okay, next one. So the fourth one is reaffirms that provisions for a special and differential treatment should be integral. First of all, you have to understand what is special and differential treatment. So there is a S&D term which is related to whenever a developing country gains some special and differential treatment against the strict norms, strict provisions of WTO, that treatment is called a special and differential treatment. So developing countries get relaxation upon that, the hard and fast rules, and least developed countries are somehow exempted from those provisions. So this is called a special and differential treatment. So there was a reaffirm on this point that provisions of suspension should be remain integral to that, and there should not be any elimination of any provision under this special and differential treatment. Next point is India sought and succeeded in obtaining reaffirmative ministerial decision on public stock holding for food security purpose, and this public stock holding food security purpose was basically came out from the Bali Ministerial and General Council decision. There was a council meeting of WTO and Ministerial and General Council meeting, and it was took place in Bali, and in this meeting the countries agreed upon the point that developing countries can give some subsidy for on the agriculture produce for food security purpose, because developing countries somehow, India is also a developing country, China is also a developing country, are having also big population. Okay, so they can give some exemption, can be given some exemptions regarding the subsidies for the agriculture produce, so that their food security do not hamper. So this was reaffirmed under Nairobi negotiation. Okay, next one is sorry, my cursor. Okay, developing countries a special safeguard mechanism for agriculture products. So developing countries again sought for the reaffirmation on the special safeguard mechanism for agricultural products, and developed countries basically trying to eliminate this to get their benefit, because these are the items they are basically borrowing, they are basically importing from the developing countries, and that is why they want elimination of all the subsidies, so that these products do not interfere their wish and will. So this is the also issue. Next, agreed to elimination of agriculture export subsidies subject. Okay, so there was also agreement among the members in this Nairobi negotiation that elimination of agriculture export subsidies subject would be will be taken care of. And what are the export subsidies related to agriculture? They are longer phase out period for transportation, because see, transportation again is different in the different countries. Like developed countries are having very good infrastructure, so that there is no transportation problem. The farmer can definitely transport easily. However, the developing countries or the least developed countries are having very poor infrastructure, and somehow infrastructure affects their prices of production of farmers, and that becomes very discriminatory in the world to trade. So that is why everybody wants, I mean, developing country and least developed country wants not phasing out of export subsidies, agriculture export subsidies. However, due to the peer pressure, due to the developed countries pressure, it has been agreed upon, and in fact they are giving more subsidies, export subsidies, and somehow developing countries are also on the board to eliminate this. So that is why they agreed upon this point, agreed to elimination of agriculture export subsidies, like longer phase out period for the transportation, longer phase out required, because for the developing countries it is not easy to develop infrastructure very fast due to paucity of funds, etc. And also marketing export subsidies for exporting agriculture products, so longer phase out period is required for that purpose. Anyway, next point, developed countries have committed to removing export subsidies immediately, and later developing countries will also eliminate this subsidy, removing export subsidies. So developed countries, this is a good point for the tug of war team, like developing plus least developed countries, because somehow developed countries have agreed to, or you can say that they are committed to remove export subsidies, because they give huge export subsidies to their agricultural produce, and that makes their produce very cheap in the market, and that is why it hampers the volume of trade of poor countries or somehow developing countries, because cheap produce will be sold easily in the market, and our produce becomes very high cost. So that is the problem, and that has been solved in this Nairobi negotiation. That is a good point. And but later developing country has also to remove export subsidies. Okay, so developing countries will also marketing and transportation subsidies, they have to also eliminate it till the 2023. This is also a important point. Marketing and transportation subsidy has to be eliminated by developing country for agriculture export until the end of 2023. This is the data you have to remember. Least developed countries and net food importing developing countries have been given additional time to do this, to eliminate export subsidies. Least developed countries and net food importing developing countries have been given additional time to implement these provisions. Next, now again my cursor has, okay, now the terms to limit the benefits of financing support to agriculture produce exporters has also been discussed and somehow agreed by the members, that there must be some terms to limit benefit of financing support to agriculture export. There should be very less, and it should be in differential manner also, because every country is not equal. So somehow, because trade is not equal and it becomes discriminatory, so there must be some special provisions for the poor countries and somehow developing countries. So these terms were also discussed. Then rules on the state enterprises engaging in the agricultural trade was implemented. There have been agreement on the making rules on state enterprises engaging in the agricultural trade. So why this is important? Because whenever state enterprises means what? Public sector enterprises, somehow basically they support agricultural trade, so that is also reducing the cost of produce, and that is again against the market norms. So that is why this point becomes very important. The next is food aid does not negatively affect domestic production. There has been convergence on this point that developing country or the developed country, any country in this regard, should limit their food aid so that it should not negatively affect domestic production. Okay, next. Prevent evergreening of patents in the pharmaceutical sectors. So what is this? There is a patent system in pharmaceutical sector in which they basically take patent of particular drugs. For the pharmaceutical companies take patents for the particular drugs, and they the patent itself is for the limited time. Whenever they feel that the time is close and their patent will expire, they basically take extension of 20 years by just reformulating the minor changes in the particular drug. So with the minor changes which has no no effect, no somehow medical effect on the other side, on the patients, they try to get 20-year extension. That is called evergreening of patents. So that has also been prevented in this. Next is India supported outcomes on issue of interest to LDC. So India is basically in favor of LDC's least developed countries, and including enhanced preferential rules of origin, duty-free trade, somehow quota-free access scheme to least developed countries. So this is a good gesture shown by India. Next is issue of fisheries subsidies could not be resolved, and India strongly opposed this provision. China also opposed due to lack of clarity on the provisions. So basically there was a point in World Trade Organization Nairobi Negotiation that fishery subsidies should be resolved, the issue of fishery subsidies, but India and China and somehow Saudi Arabia also felt that these provisions are very vague, they are not clear. Due to lack of clarity, they opposed, and there was no consensus on this point. Next is issue of anti-dumping. India strongly opposed WTO's anti-dumping committee. So there is a committee of WTO, World Trade Organization, which looked into the matter of anti-dumping. So they wanted to review the provisions of anti-dumping, and India strongly opposed it, and it also, there was a lack of convergence, so it also did not happen. So there are total 53 WTO members who agreed on the timetable for implementing a deal to eliminate tariffs on 201 IT products. So this is also important point. Next, rich, or you can call developed countries, wanted the introduction of some new issues. So in the global market, in the global economy, there are new issues which are emerging, such as global value chain, such as issues related to e-commerce, how it has to be taxed, etc., competition laws, then labor reforms, etc., labor laws, environment and investment issues. These are the new or you can say these are the emerging issues basically upon which developed countries wanted to introduce them into the negotiation. So these were the new issues they wanted to introduce, okay, in the Nairobi negotiations. So that's all from this video. I hope you have got some idea about how negotiations happen and what all points important from the perspective of UPSC from Nairobi negotiation. You have to take the screenshot of this slide. This will act as a note, and believe me, nothing will come out of this slide. Everything will come. I have explained, I think, very elaboratively. So you have to take the screenshot, take it right now, and do subscribe to the channel right now, and do not forget to press the bell icon also. Bye. And if you want, you can give me your valuable feedback also. You can ask your doubts. I will clarify. You can put them into the comment section. So thank you. Bye.